Hi and welcome to the latest episode of Pat's Procrastination, brought to you by the Pat's Propaganda YouTube channel. Welcome into episode 23, folks. Please do not forget to be subscribing to said YouTube channel so that you do not miss an episode of this was off season, technically now the season, no regular games just yet kind of situation that we are in, waiting for the draft. We're all waiting for the draft. So as I said, here we are, myself, Clazzy Clare, and himself, Chudders. Chudders, how are things with you?
Well, you say we're waiting for the draft, we're waiting for regular season. Are we still waiting for star players?
Did you really have to start on a negative? We're really trying so hard to be upbeat and to not give in to your curmudgeonness nature. But yeah, looking at the topics that we want to cover today, we really wanted to talk about that how, like in free agency, obviously the Patriots don't seem to have addressed any of the three needs that they were discussing, and because quarterback is a bit of put a pin in it sort of thing, because they did bring in Jacoby Brissett, and a lot of speculation that why you they did, didn't they?
They did. Yeah.
Okay, look, you're shaking your head at me then. Don't do that. I had a flow, and now I don't. Speculation that they're going to take a quarterback at 3. Depends who you want to believe, and that's completely fine. But that's a sort of a separate topic and feels like a little bit of a given. It's either one or another, and I think we're going to talk about that a little bit later. But the O-line and the wide receiver room are two areas that I think both of us are concerned about. More so the wide receiver for yourself, and I think more so for the O-line for myself. Not saying that you're not concerned, just as a scale, because you love grading scales. I think you're more the wide receiver room and I'm more towards the O-line. I think, you know, if we put the O-line to wide receiver Chudders Clare scale, I'm going that way a bit and you're going that way a bit. So which do you want to address first?
Well, should we go for your hotspot? Let's go for the O-line, shall we?
Okay. I don't know how to maintain positivity on this one, because I wrote down who the left tackle, left guard, right tackle are, and went, oh no, you're not serious. So yeah, I'm really sorry, folks. I normally try to bring the upbeat positivity, and this one I am struggling a little bit, but I'm trying to stay positive. There is the draft. There's still some time in free agency. So
okay, let's start with the positive element of the O-line then,
which is
centre David Andrews. It certainly appears he's coming back. Doesn't look like he's handed in his resignation forms. So hopefully you've got that core piece, you've got that captain, you've got that continuity. Centre is a lockdown. Obviously, last year the Patriots.
I'm very sorry to interrupt you, and I hate doing this actually, but he has had injury history. Apologies. Yeah, and he's getting on. No offense, David. Love you completely. But you know, it's he's not a young buck anymore. So even there, you can pick holes in security. Now, push back quickly. One positive: they did sign Mike Onwenu. They retained somebody, and they retained somebody really good. Now, I know you're not too happy with the whole right tackle situation, that they're saying that that's where they're going to be putting him. I think it's best to wait and see to how much we worry about that, to see if they do actually do that, because there's so much speculation right now. It's so difficult to really believe what's going on, because there's so many different people telling you so many different things that apparently they know. And a great man said on a recent semi-controversial series, because I know a few people like it, a few people don't like it, that you weren't there, you weren't in the room, how can you know? And that was taken from a Tom Brady interview like ages ago, when something not very good was happening. But it's true. It's so true. How do we know? We weren't sitting in that room. We don't know. So I like to reserve a bit of judgment till we actually see. But each to their own. Everybody believes what they want to believe, and I'm not going to tell anybody how to think or fan. So yeah, so positives: David Andrews, Mike Onwenu. I'm very sorry, I completely took it from you. So continue. Very chatty this morning, obviously.
You sound off, Claire. I'm sure you take it in a better direction than I would. Well, I was going to try and work inside out from the good elements to then finish with the bad. So, like I said, we've got David Andrews. They drafted last year Jake Andrews as a backup centre. So hopefully, again, you won't need him, but hopefully you've then been developing a centre potentially at a pinch. He can play guard as well. But hopefully that centre of the O-line is in a stable condition, if not a good condition. Because I think I'm a lot of confidence in David Andrews. I appreciate what you're saying about his age and potentially some vulnerabilities there with injuries as well.
I always hate saying age for these young guys, and I hate aging players when they're still such young men. I hate it, relative. But yeah, exactly. It's relative completely.
It's all relative because they're all of these players are incredible athletes, but yet we can say some of them are rubbish because they relatively are.
You might say that. I won't say that.
So looking at the guard spots, there's 3 core that played last year in Antonio Maffei, Sidi Sow, Cole Strange. Now, you could have also thrown in Mike Onwenu, but as has been publicised quite widely, the feeling is the Patriots are going to be using him as right tackle. So looking purely at the guards, Cole Strange, you had a bit of injury knocks, and we're not entirely certain of his status coming into the season. So we're not sure around him. Drafted Maffei, drafted Sal. They've picked up this off-season Michael Jordan and Nick Leverett. So they've got some other options there at guard. I'd like to think between those 5 players, they can find 2 healthy guards that are serviceable. Certainly good enough.
We want more than serviceable, don't we? Isn't this
yes, we do. Ideally, ideally, I was hoping that Mike Onwenu would be right guard. Maybe Cole Strange on an upswing this year would have been left guard and in a very strong position. It doesn't look like that's going to be the case. But I would say guard is not an area of concern, not an area I'm necessarily now looking for them to attack in the draft or in free agency or available players, trades, etc.
Can you imagine if they get 2 really good tackles? I won't know what to do with myself. I really won't.
Complain they've not got enough talent ends, probably. So on the interior of the offensive line, I'm pleased at what they've got there. There's no great concerns in what they're doing there. I guess before we get to the problem area and tackles, the other element to touch on is obviously the change in coaching. New offensive line coach. They've got Robert Kugler. Have I pronounced that right? Kugler, I believe.
I haven't got it in front of me.
As well as Scott Peters. So they've got new offensive line coaches in there that hopefully that's going to help to improve what's been going on. I'm sure they're not Skarnecki good, but hopefully that's going to be better than what you've had the past year or 2 on the O-line. I wasn't impressed at all. It appears there were some health issues.
Have a coach. Yeah, I was going to say they didn't have the coach for half of it in the end and stuff like that. So
the word is Ferentz was doing a lot of it as a player coach almost.
He took loads of flack as well. I feel really bad for giving him any flack.
I don't know. I didn't give him any flack. I wouldn't mind if he'd returned as some sort of O-line coach.
Yeah, me too.
He's got a pedigree.
As a player, I gave him some flack. I got to admit.
So on the guard front, on the coaching front, I'm settled. I feel okay. Now the problem child of tackles, we have it stated Michael Onwenu's going to be playing right tackle. I'm fair neutral about that. I'm not going to say I'm happy about it. I think you could potentially do better, but I like the continuity, and I think you can do a lot worse. Onwenu is a very good offensive lineman. I think he's probably slightly better at guard, but he can be a good tackle. I hope he can continue to develop and can lock down that side. On the left side, you've obviously lost Trent Brown, which I don't think is... You could debate that for a long time. He has talents, traits there, size there, but there was a lot of off-field issues and mentality, commitment issues there, as well as injury, to be honest, that I'm pleased they didn't bring him back. You've signed from the Steelers a Corafor, who... The expectation was he was going to be a swing tackle, backup tackle, rather than he's going to be a starting tackle. He can start at a pinch, but not. I will be very concerned if we're going into the season and he is the slated left tackle for the Patriots this year. Returning, you've got Valerian Lowe, Tyrone Wheatley, Andrew Stuber, Calvin Anderson, and Connor McDermott, all who have fulfilled roles at tackle over the last year or so. However, none of them have, to be honest, really looked good enough. Maybe with new coaching, new situation, Wheatley, who hasn't actually started in the NFL yet, can come back and one of them can be serviceable. In all honesty, my expectation is no more than a backup. I can't expect that one of those is suddenly going to take off and become a starting left tackle. They just haven't shown enough consistency, enough promise in my mind. That for me, I guess that's the situation we're in now. Before we look at the options of where we can go from here, that's what I can see for now. And then you want to sort of speak on that, add on that, Claire?
I just think that maybe the left tackle situation indicates that they haven't signed, for want of a better phrase, like a big name, a money guy, a veteran, because that is the position that they are looking to draft reasonably high to bring in someone that they want to develop internally. Are they looking at situations where the guys that they bring in are, draft, develop and maintain? Are we looking at that for the future? And that's some of it. What it might be that they just couldn't get the guy that they wanted. There's so many ifs, buts, candy nuts, isn't there, as to why they haven't brought one in. There's still time, and there's still a couple of guys. I was trying to look before we went on air. Thursday morning, this is UK time. I was trying to look at who was still available, and there was one name that just kept popping out to me, but he's just coming off injury, so he'd be a throw it at the wall 1 year situation. And would he manage through the year? So David Bakhtiari. So I'm sort of waiting to see where his name drops, if they bring him in at all, because significantly decent left tackle with experience, but he's coming off an injury. But could we get him for cheap coming off an injury and have him for a year while they draft someone who develops behind him, stuff like that? I'm sort of keeping my fingers crossed for something like that, because we've still got some time in free agency before the draft. I am keeping my fingers crossed for something along those lines. But I mean, then again, I know this is touching upon what we want to talk about later if we have time, which it doesn't look like we will, but we possibly will if we manage to touch upon it, is if the Patriots do the whole don't draft a quarterback, move back, get more for their money sort of thing, and they manage to secure the likes of Joe Alt, you have got a starting left tackle in him. No messing, put him in, don't need to worry about it. So if they've got if that's in their mind, then left tackle isn't a problem for them, because he's the guy and he's going to go in. So like I said, you don't know because we're not there. So it's all if buts, candy and nuts at the moment. So yeah, do you want to move on to wide receiver?
No, well, I'd take Bakhtiari. He's played well for Green Bay. He was, Rodgers loved him. So I'd be happy, like you say, if they brought him on a short-term contract to shore up the offensive tackles and hopefully develop a new one underneath, a drafted one underneath. Yeah. I like that plan, or maybe someone like Mekhi Becton. Again, both of those who have had injury time missed. So you're not necessarily guaranteed you're going to be getting 17 starts out of them. But they're seasoned players in the NFL, and they can potentially come in and perform at a certain level to develop underneath a new player. Those, I think, are the main free option that they could probably do, free agent options before the draft. Now, post-draft, it could still be addressed, because some teams who go and pick up early tackles, first couple of rounds, may well see someone that they think is now their starting tackle, and so who was previously their starting tackles may now become available for trades at a cheaper price, because they now no longer need them, and they'd be happy to pick up a 5th round, 4th round pick for a tackle they don't really need anymore. We don't have panic yet, but it's because again, you're at the stage where you're picking up cast-offs. You're not picking up who are the top targets.
You say that, and don't forget, there's always the situation where those guys really work out. Now it's like it's shooting into trying to shoot fish in the ocean versus fish in a barrel. I completely agree with that, but there's still the chance, there's still the possibility, and it's like, try and maintain that little bit of it could still happen.
It could.
See, this is where I get in trouble for logic, because I know logically.
It's not because you think it's okay. Go on.
logically, there's a very slim chance of it happening. But my argument is, my pushback always is, I know it's very unlikely, but you can't deny there's still that slight possibility. Now, it's slight, so it's like, well, you'd argue there's not much chance. Fair enough. There's not much chance, so there's still a chance. That's all I'm saying. That's all I want to go with. But anyway, that's whatever. So yeah, you never know who could shake loose sometimes. I tell you one thing I'm going to be annoyed at. This is completely like sort of semi off topic. If Trent Brown goes to the Bengals and he's really, really, really committed and really good, that will really annoy me. Of all the things this off season, that will tick me off.
It won't bother me.
I think it'd tick me off for the whole principle of the matter. I think
it wouldn't bother me because that would just show poor management of him. If that was in him, why didn't you get it out of him?
Mm-hmm.
And this wasn't the right fit. Just sometimes it's not the right fit.
Okay.
You could say like Baker Mayfield at the Browns. They gave him everything.
Yeah.
It's not like, but it didn't really work for them. He's gone to the Buccaneers. That's only a sample size of 1 year, but he's had a very good year. He took them to the playoffs first year. It just worked.
Just like proving
sometimes it's just a better situation for you, and that's what you need to set. But I guess to your point, that's where potentially someone else's third tackle or what you would perceived to be a lower graded tackle could come here, and it's the perfect fit.
Exactly. See, that's the point I was trying to make.
And they advance. Exactly. So tackle is a big concern, particularly left tackle, very important position. It's a concern. The likelihood is that we're going to take a quarterback at 3. So you're taking a right-handed quarterback. So left tackle.
People banging the table shouting at you right now because they want JJ McCarthy and things like that.
Okay, but even the point is, even he's
no, I know. I'm just
quarterback.
Yeah, you've got to say something. The point,
yeah, but where I was getting to is, if you were looking at Penix at 34, for example, then right tackle is more important than left tackle, and essentially Onwenu's then, if you like, your left tackle, protecting his blind side. Then I'd have concerns on the right tackle side potentially there. And I don't know if Onwenu is seriously good enough to be the blind side tackle. And that's where maybe a Corafor could be good enough to be the open side tackle. But I don't think that's the route we need to go down, because I don't think that's the route the Patriots are going to go. They're going to be picking up a right-handed quarterback at the start of the draft. And it is very important that they pick up a left tackle. I would like to think we can get to these debates later on, maybe when we've done receivers. But with that second or third pick, one's going to be a receiver, one's going to be a tackle. And in all honesty, a tackle you pick up at 34 versus a tackle you're picking up in the third round, there's going to be quite a drop off there. It's particularly an expectation. You could potentially get a starting tackle at 34. It's not completely written off, but it's less likely you're going to get starting left tackle that's going to be good enough in the third round. But likewise, we're going to get onto in a minute, there's a glaring hole at receiver. The receiver you could get at 34 could be that starting X receiver you need, whereas the likelihood is a receiver you're going to get in the third round can be a good piece, but there's probably going to be 20 receivers that have gone ahead of that.
2 things very, very quickly. We're not touching upon tight ends whatsoever, but I just need to let people know. Don't forget to go over to patspropaganda.com and have a look at my recent Remember the Tight Ends article, where I cover what the Patriots have got right now at tight end and what they could potentially look at the draft. Now, I didn't cover everybody at the draft because literally, as I said in my article, there's so many hours in the day to peruse tight endage, and I don't have enough of them. But anyway, so please go over there.
I've got enough hours in my day to peruse them as much as I'd like to. Didn't take very long.
How neat. But yes, please go over and keep your eyes peeled on patspropaganda.com. Obviously, the link for the show goes over onto the blog site as well. But all my articles that I'm trying to feverishly squeeze into weeks between different shows are on there as well. So please keep your eyes out on patspropaganda.com and do check out my latest tight endage article. And just very quickly, one more plug is I will be on Locked On Patriots later. So I will be talking to Mike Diabates. I'll probably be out tomorrow, so Friday, and that's kind of it, the topic we are touching on tight ends. So I will be talking about a little bit that I divulge in the article, but not very specifically. So they kind of marry together as a pair. So if you're interested, please do kind of check out Locked On Patriots anywhere you get your podcast, and I think it goes out on their YouTube channel as well. So that will probably be tomorrow now. So yeah, sorry, apologies, finished with my shameless plugs there of my work that I want people to check out, because that's the whole point. And so we'll swiftly move on very smoothly.
Well, can I just to close off tackle, are we in agreement then that we'd like to see the Patriots draft a tackle on day 2, as well as still yet pick up a starting left tackle in free agency, in trade?
Yes.
Excellent. Thank you. Right. We'll draw a line under tackle then. Let's move
One
on
thing
to
we
receivers.
agree on. It's very unusual. So folks, mark this in your diary. We agreed on something. Yes, let's move to one of your favourites. I know linebacker obviously is your favourite, but you seem to have an interest in wide receivers a little bit more than me. I tend to like the big guys a bit more. So it is what it is, folks. Each to their own. Wide receiver room. Again, I've got to credit Taylor Kyles for his beautiful breakdown of the Patriots unofficial roster at the moment. His work is exceptional, and all of his podcast work, obviously. So make sure you're checking out Taylor Kyles over there. Yeah, it's looking semi-sparse. Now, I want to ask you a question. I don't know if we have time for this, but are you more concerned with their O-line room? Because I know you said we draw a line, but this is a specific question. Are you more concerned with the O-line room or the wide receiver room? And do you believe that they will get a better tackle at 34 than they could necessarily get wide receiver? No, sorry. Would it be better to take a tackle at 34 because a third round wide receiver could still be as successful? That's the question I was trying to move towards. But yeah, which one has you more concerned at the moment, the O-line room or the wide receiver room that they have?
Probably left tackle is concerning more to me at the moment. It's such a key component. Yeah. Patriots performed so poorly on the O-line last year. I think you need to strengthen your left tackle. It's the one position you need to get. They've got a bunch of receivers that are you may only need 1, 2, 3 on a play. You've got enough you can get out there and get into various different options. I think they are still missing a number 1 receiver. But they've shown through the years you can perform better when you have that number 1 receiver. But there are other ways of playing the game, if you like, with what they've got. Now, that said, I want them to address it. That's not me trying to cop out and say I think what they've got is great. I don't. I think it needs improving. But when you're asking which position I'm more concerned about, I'd rather probably get a top left tackle right now than another X receiver.
Yeah, if you had to sacrifice 34 for the one or the other, would you sacrifice it for a good?
Yeah. It's the cop-out answer of let's see who's on the board on the day. But as we sit at the moment, the depth at receiver and what you could get day 3 is better than the depth at tackle that you could get day 3 on the projections. Exactly. Obviously, again, until we get there, we don't know how things are going to play out. So at the moment, I'd be thinking tackle at 34 and receiver in the 3rd round. But I'm open to that being flipped depending on how the ball plays out on the day. Or potentially, I guess the other option it's worth mentioning is trading up from the 2nd round and moving up into the back end of the 1st round if a particular tackle has dropped, maybe Mims has dropped, and you think, okay, I can pick him up on coming off injury. That's why other people are staying away from him. But you think, I want him. Trading up into that 1st round again and picking up the player you want. I'd be very much open to that. You could potentially even do that, moving up from 3rd into 2nd as well. Yeah. Again, if you've taken a tackle at, let's say you've traded up into the 1st round to pick up Mims at 28 or something like that, there's nothing to stop you doing that again. If you trade up your 3rd round pick, and again, this may be wrapping up something for next year using future picks, but you could wrap up that to move into the back end of the second round. If there's a receiver there that's dropping down, hasn't gone as quickly as you would have thought, and you can pick them up as well. So there's nothing to stop the Patriots making 3 picks in the first 2 rounds, if that's the way they want to attack this, because it's 2 glaring holes. So I guess, again, quickly, if we just touch on who they have got. So Demario Douglas.
Go on.
Okay, go on. You break down the receivers. You break down the receivers one.
Demario Douglas, Kendrick Bourne. They signed KJ Osborne recently from the Vikings. Jalen Reagor, Tyquan Thornton, Juju Smith-Schuster. And then Tyler's got Kaiwan Baker and TJ Luther on his 3rd string as well. They were practice squad guys, so I'm not sure if they've been retained.
And you got Butte as well.
I was curious about these. Have they still got Butte?
Yeah, they still got Butte. The expectation is that he will. There's a good chance he's going to get some sort of ban from his gambling.
Yeah, I think
escapades.
That's where I was thinking. I thought they'd released him following that, so my bad.
I don't think they've released him, and I don't think the NFL have issued any sort of ban as of yet. But the expectation is it could very well happen.
Taylor still has him on his list as well. I hadn't checked it for myself. I was using his information, and not that I don't trust him, but I thought they'd released him. But I'm guessing that's not the case then.
I'll check. You keep working, and I'll just check in the background.
I'll keep working. Yeah, great. I mean, Reagor was one of the first retains that they had when it came to the wide receiver situation. Before they signed Osborne, and I know everybody wanted Calvin Ridley. The one thing that I said to you, I think it was off air. I don't think it was last show. I was watching. Yeah, it was been off air. I was watching Austin Hooper highlights for my article. I hadn't paid a lot of attention to. I know tight end. I work with me here. I was watching a lot of his sort of film, like YouTube tape, whatever. And obviously, when he was on the Browns, you'd got the likes of Nick Chubb that was sort of a superstar, if you like. And when he was at Tennessee, you've got Henry as well, because he was quite open. I noticed that he was left quite open, and the reason he was left open is because the defense were having to scheme for major key players. Obviously, in those 2 teams' cases, it was running backs. It wasn't necessarily the wide receiver at the time. Made me think about the fact how a lot of people always say that the Patriots don't need a wide receiver 1. They've never needed a wide receiver 1 when they had Tom Brady. But it's such a different type of football now that you need that offensive piece that the defense need to be concerned with, don't we? And I think looking at their wide receiver room, to me, Douglas does stand out that he may be a piece potentially that could be that good. We don't quite know. He seems really good. We don't quite know. Is it a case of maybe? I know. I'm positive to sort of wait and see on him to see who's.
I don't think he's the number 1 receiver. He's a very, very good receiver. I think he showed that he can play at high level.
Yeah.
But it's a slot receiver. It's like Edelman. Edelman was never a number 1 receiver. He was your top receiver, but he wasn't a number 1 receiver. If that makes sense. It's that difference. Yeah. And that's where I think Douglas could potentially be that. It's a bit like Myers as well when he became Max Pinky, that they can become one of your best weapons, but they're not a number 1 receiver. They're not someone the defense is highly scheming against, double teaming. He's not putting fear into anyone's eyes. He could just be a reliable piece for you.
Question. There was a lack of, I think they've said this on PU actually, so I'm not untoward saying this. I think there was a lack of just availability of top wide receivers in free agency. It wasn't a deep pool of skill set. Is there anyone out there that you would still like? Because we know that Williams went to. Did Williams go to the Jets? Oh, I got that one right. Williams went to the Jets. Obviously, Ridley they missed out on. Now, a lot of people complain about that, and I do think it goes back to, we know that they tried to get him. We apparently know how much money they offered him, but we weren't in the room, so you don't know that they matched the deal, and he still said no because he wanted to go to Tennessee. We don't know that, and I think to throw a load of shade on they didn't try is a difficult one personally, but I can see you don't agree, so that's fine. We'll move on. But yeah, they tried to get Ridley, or Ridley went to the Titans, Williams went to the Jets. And
I would have liked to have got Ridley, but I don't see it as the end of the world that you didn't get him, because, like you said, I think you could have got him if you'd have overpaid.
But if they'd have overpaid, would people be complaining that they overpaid for something?
100%. 100%. But the only but I'll put on that is this time next year, it won't look like it's overpaid. Assuming he's been good enough.
Yeah.
It won't look like you've overpaid, because there's a number of receivers that are due to get paid next year. And let's say you paid Ridley 26 million this year, which is arguably overpaying him.
Yeah.
Next year, that's going to seem relatively cheap compared to some of the deals that can be handed out to receivers. So in his second, third, fourth year, however long you've tied him down for, 26 million isn't going to look that bad. It would have looked, it would have been complained on this year because it would have been in the top 10 paid receivers this year. But then going forward, it wouldn't have seemed as bad as it initially did. I would still be interested in Higgins. Now, having just told you that I'm more concerned with left tackle, and I'd use my second round pick to
you would have used 34 for Higgins.
I would probably need to use 34 to get Higgins.
No.
And I wouldn't be against doing that at all, to be honest, because if you've got the conversations, commitment with him, he'll sign a longer term contract. I would take him. I'd take that.
I would
touch on one thing that I did with the offensive line is you've got two new coaches in the room again, in Tyler Hughes and Tyquan Underwood. The coaching for the receivers took a lot of flack. Troy Brown, who's a Patriots legend on the field, there seemed to be a lot of roots and commitment issues in the receiving room of receivers not doing their job properly, if you like. And potentially that's something that can be tidied up, cleaned up, so that it's looking a bit crisper on the receiving room. Now, we could debate for a long time who we want them to take at 3.
And you have 2 minutes to do that.
And I have 2 minutes. It's looking most likely Drake May. The rumors are that Washington are going to take Daniels. One pipe dream that I've had for a number of months now was if the Patriots took Jaden Daniels at 3. The one, I think there is a outside chance that he could be a good fit for Tyquan Thornton, because he would like a speedster who could really get down the field, because he likes a deep ball, and potentially that could be something that could work with Thornton. I'm not saying definitely. It would just be a slither of hope to resurrect a career. Likewise, potentially a even smaller slither of hope, you may be able to resurrect Butte as well, given his bans. But Butte played at LSU with Jaden Daniels 2 years ago. So there's a chance you could come in and you've got that same school, bit of a history, bit of a relationship, bit of a connection there, and you bring in Daniels and you've suddenly managed to resurrect 2 receivers. And I'm not saying either of them become number 1 receiver, but you resurrect 2 careers.
You're just trying to work it so that a really good reason for them to take the guy that you really want.
It has nothing to do with it, because they won't have the choice. Hopefully they'll just take whoever's there, and it's up to Washington to decide who the Patriots take almost at the moment. So that's just 2 tiny elements. There's going to be some options in the second round, like I said, but there will still be some options in the third round as well. To be honest, there may even be options in the fourth round as well if you want to double up and take 2 receivers. It's a very deep receiver class for different types of receivers this year. They need to address that in the draft for definite. So again, I'd be happy if they took say, for example, someone like T. Higgins, and they did take an established receiver. If they don't, and I think at the moment it's looking more likely that they're not going to address it in free agency or trade, then there is a chance to get a talent and develop them in the draft, and that's what I'll be hoping for on the first 2 days.
And as usual, we've run out of time again, and we have a whole other topic that we were going to touch on. So maybe, hopefully, if we get a chance, we'll bring you a show next week, because we wanted to argue the whole taking a quarterback at 3 or trading back situation that everybody wants to discuss at the moment. And we did want to argue that, actually, folks, for the show, but
both of us arguing to take a quarterback at 3, whoever it is.
I wanted to discuss like who was taken and what. I've got lists of who was taken when, what year, what quarterback was taken. So much research that I want to utilise, but I can't. But yes, hopefully folks will bring you, as always, keep your eyes peeled on the socials, as they say, for patspropaganda.com and the Pats at Pats Propaganda Twitter and my own Twitter account, that kind of things to check out. Hopefully we'll notify you that we'll be able to bring you another show quite soon. So, as always, this is it for another episode of Pat's Procrastination, brought to you by the Pat's Propaganda YouTube channel. Tune in next time, folks, whenever that may be. Have a good day. And as always, go Pats.
Left G.